Dems fire fail. Many families in Southern California, they're working to pick up the pieces amidst the wildfires that torched thousands of acres, incinerated homes and businesses, and killed at least 27 people. And at last check, officials say 3 wildfires continue to burn in the LA region, and the Pacific Palisades fire has reached only 43% containment. Well, this comes as a new estimate from AccuWeather saying that the cost of the LA wildfires could be at least $250 billion. To discuss, let's bring in California resident Kate Monroe. She's also a former congressional candidate for the Golden State and a Republican strategist. Also with us, Richard Stern. He used to work with Congressman Tom McClintock and handled forest management and wildfire issues, and is now the director of budget policy for the Heritage Foundation. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start off with the Los Angeles Fire Chief, Kristen Crowley. She's been the subject of a 5-page blistering letter from the current and retired LAFD bravest demanding that she step aside immediately. There seems to be a lot of finger pointing here. Kate, what do you think about this? Mayor Bass needs to step down. Gavin Newsom needs to step down. This fire chief needs to step down. I mean, they seem to care more about diversity and inclusion. When will people understand, Kate, that DEI spells DIE instead?
I love that acronym flipped on its head. I'll tell you this, as somebody who ran for Congress here in California, politics is nothing but a grift. All these people are good at doing is raising money. They are not problem solvers. They are not business people. They have no acumen to be doing this. They are so far out of their depth. I mean, can you imagine not knowing SHIT about fire while standing and watching half of LA burning down, just going, how did I even arrive here? It's top-down failure all the way from Newsom, all the way down. I mean, this fire chief, it's her fault that the water isn't in the reservoir? I don't think so. I mean, whether I like her or not, all of this doesn't fall on her. It's absolutely disgusting. As a resident of California, we need to clean house, and people need to do a better job voting, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, this might be what finally turns people towards common sense, right? And then you have Governor Gavin Newsom denying that this had anything to do with the reservoirs being empty, and that he even got a community note. Richard, right? He got a community note saying, well, actually, and we saw it, LA Times. The LA Times put out an article, which is very left-leaning, that the reservoir was empty, that Pacific Reservoir, and that also he was concerned about saving little fishies instead of saving people's lives. Now we're talking, Richard, $250 billion. Joe Biden said he's going to help. But I mean, let's take a listen to what Joe Biden, how much money he said he's going to give out as an initial payment. Listen to this.
We're not waiting until those fires are over to start helping the victims. We're getting them help right now, as you all know. People impacted by these fires are going to receive one-time payment of $770, one-time payment, so they can quickly purchase things like water, baby formula, and prescriptions. So far, nearly 6,000 survivors have registered to do just that, and $5.1 million has gone out.
He's embarrassing. $770. People are going online to sign up for federal aid. The website's I mean, what do you think about that, Richard? How embarrassing. $770? That can't even buy groceries for the week.
Oh, I mean, it's not only embarrassing, but it's just plain evil. And I agree. This is what liberal left-wing government is. You know, they sent the water to the Pacific Ocean. They sent the fire trucks to Ukraine. They don't care about their own constituents. And I mean, we've gone through all this, but every inch of this was government mismanagement. They wouldn't allow proper thinning of forest. They wouldn't allow fire breaks to be created. They didn't have the right equipment. The reservoir we're talking about that's empty, that's been empty for 8 months. They have been doing repairs that no one can point to in the slowest fashion you would expect any government bureaucracy to do. And yes, now we're back to, we had the Hawaii wildfires, we had the hurricanes tear up North Carolina and Georgia and Florida, and it's this same $700-ish check. Well, we have been writing checks for $200+ billion to the Ukrainian government, most of which we figured out has been laundered back to donors of Democrat politicians. So you can't make this stuff up. My heart goes out to the people of California, but this is exactly why we need governments that respect their people, respect their rights, and stop looking at the government as a way to get themselves and their donors' welfare.
You know, and then Kate, there's this finger pointing. They even Newsom tried to blame Trump and say, oh, please come out here and tour. Trump says he will probably travel to L.A. after the inauguration to view the wildfire aftermath. And during an interview with another outlet, this news comes as state and local officials have been heavily criticized, of course, how they're handling the fires. What do you think about Newsom? Does this, I know, they keep telling us we shouldn't talk about politics, but there was talk about Newsom running for president. Does this disqualify him? I mean, the way he's handled everything, the homeless, the drug crisis, you name it, in California, should have disqualified him. But does this put the nail in the coffin of Newsom's political future?
Well, I don't think it's the final nail in the coffin. I think the final nail in the coffin already happened previous to this. I think this is the coffin getting lowered into the ground and dirt getting kicked in on top of it. I mean, the real issue here is people want to say that this is a natural disaster. This is not a hurricane. This is not a tsunami, a tornado, an earthquake. This is the failure of our state to stop homeless, drugs, and lawlessness. You had a homeless man start a multi-billion-dollar fire after you spent $24 billion to fix homelessness and only to make the problem greater. If you're looking at Newsom to be the next president, you better clean off the lenses of the glasses that you are looking through.
You know, and now we're seeing a lot of looting going on, crime rampant. You see, I mean, what do you think about this, Richard? It just seems California, I don't even know what's going on there.
State for criminals of all stripes, whether they sit in the governor's mansion or whether they're looting stores and taking advantage of people whose entire livelihoods have been destroyed by this fire. And, again, when we talk about the enormous cost of this, and we talk about how much of that is the burden of government mismanagement, I mean, we've had years of seeing that, whether it's prosecutors who don't prosecute shoplifters, whether it's the government, the police force of the state government, that were arresting parents for taking their kids to parks during the height of the COVID government shutdowns and lockdowns. So we have a government in California that is on its head. Instead of being there to protect and to serve, they are there to add to the crime, to encourage criminals to do what they do. And now we've seen this literally dystopian kind of destruction of private property because people pay the highest tax burden in the country in California of all the states, and they get the least protection and the least government service to deal with any of these problems, from wildfires to petty criminals.
We have to leave it right there. Kate Monroe, Richard Stern, thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, how will Trump's second inauguration